Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Ain't Dying for This, a Black Woman's Guide to Liberation. I am your host, Crystle Johnson, and I missed y'all. It's been a little while since I've seen you or I've talked to you. I've been doing a lot. So as you all know, we had a retreat in August that was amazing in Cartagena, Colombia, with some beautifully brilliant Black women. And then I just came back from Spain. So that was also really, really relaxing. And I think it gave me an opportunity to really just rest because I'm always telling y'all to rest and put yourself first. So it gave me the opportunity to do that, to unplug, to not really think about anything other than the present, what was in front of me at that time. So if you are listening for the first time, We Ain't Dying for This is a community of Black women and for Black women demanding our collective liberation through radically soft living. I created We Ain't Dying for This because, quite frankly, Black women are dying, and we're dying because we are taking on the weight of the world. And what I would like to do through these episodes is really feature Black women who have breaking the mold, who are living life on their own terms, and who are experiencing liberation in the ways that make sense for them and make them feel good. I think we often hear the word liberation and we think that it's either this or it's that. Either you have it or you don't. And what I'd like to make sure that we push across in these episodes is that liberation can be experienced in any way you want to experience it. So today we're going to be talking about love as liberation with our guest, Claudia Lopez. So really excited to have you here, Claudia, and the kitty.
And Theo, yeah.
The kitty. And before I pass over to Claudia for a introduction to tell us who she is and what she does, if you are listening to this episode, we would love to hear or see where it is that you're listening in from. And as always, if there is a Black woman that you think might benefit from this conversation, please let us know. And I'm just going to wait on LinkedIn. I hope we're live. We should be live, but it's been a while since we've gone live. So folks may just be coming into the room. If you join the room, please share the live, but also please let us know where it is that you're listening in from. So let's go ahead and get started. So Claudia, tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
So my name is Claudia Lopez, and I am a marketer. I have been in marketing. Hi, Alicia. For about 7 years now. And I'm also a wife, and I have been in my relationship for 10. So you could say I have a little bit more experience in love, which is our subject of tonight, than I do professionally. But I am a lover of both things, for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk about love with you here today because I think there are a lot of people out there who, if you ask them a few years ago, they might say, "Oh, love, it doesn't matter. I'm doing my own thing. I'm focused on me." Oh, hello, Alicia and Talonda. Alicia's listening from LA. Talanda's listening from Denver. So I love that we're talking about this topic because we often feel like we can do all the things on our own and we don't necessarily need anyone else to support us along the way. So talk a little bit about how you might have defined love then in the past, before 10 years ago, and how you define it now. What have you learned along the way about this thing that many people think is probably mystified, which is unconditional love?
Yeah. So I think the important thing to note is that for me, I grew up in a household that had expectations. And when you grow up with demanding expectations, if you talk about things like superwoman schema and being extremely high performance, that was a lot of what I grew up in. And in psychology terms, it develops something called an anxious attachment style.
Mhm.
So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, where the expectations that you're always at your highest performance, you're always doing as much as you possibly can, you're always pushing to the next goal, and it's very hard for you to rely on other people or to accept support. And when you are talking about love and you're talking about the relationships that you have with the people around you, it can be very hard to be in a mutually beneficial relationship when you're dealing with that level of attachment, anxious attachment. For me, the difference came in really when I met my husband 10 years ago, because I now had someone who was asking me to let things go, was asking me to take a step back, was asking me to take a break. And to this day, this man begs me to take breaks and to slow down and to pause and to breathe. So the definition that I have of love now, I'm grateful for, because it means that I have this person in my life who's reminding me of the difference in expectations now when it comes to me, who's reminding me that I have someone who I can rely on.
Yeah, when you said anxious attachment style and expectations, I fear you probably were you were talking to me for sure. But I fear that you're also talking to a lot of people as well who grew up in households where there were a lot of expectations of highly performing. I remember growing up, and I've shared this story before. I'm adopted, and while I know my biological family, I was adopted informally. So there were times where, I don't think my parents did this on purpose, obviously, not realizing what they were doing.
Mhm.
Um, so I always felt like, well, if I don't get straight A's or if I don't get honor roll, they're gonna send me back. Like I'm gonna have to go back to this other place because do they actually love me or is that love based on conditions? So in my child brain, I'm thinking, well, it's conditional. Like they only love me because I'm good. But if I wasn't good, then they won't love me. Therefore, they're going to send me back. So that is definitely that was a hard reality to face as an adult, especially considering how that might come out later in life when you are a hyperachiever, as I have been, a perfectionist, as I have been. And I know a lot of people share those traits as well, just trying to make sure that you're showing up for everybody, that you're saying yes to all the things because you don't want to lose the things that you have accumulated, the relationships that you've built. And I even posted earlier today this video from Roxy Kaus where she talked about doing a case study between burnout and growing up poor. And I know that there are other thing correlations as well, because there was someone in the chat who talked about like her parents having her grow up to be a trained classical musician. So she didn't really have a childhood because she was constantly training to become a classical musician.
Mhm.
But it's the same sort of feeling like as a child, like you just like, I gotta be perfect. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So it's definitely understood to just feel kind of like anxious and like you have to be perfect and you can't make any mistakes.
Yes, especially when you talk about the household that doesn't have much, or like you said, the association with poverty or things like, what do they call it when you are food insecurity or housing insecurity? For me, it was a lot of my mother was always working. And same thing, my stepfather, who was in the house, was always working. So the expectation for me as the oldest was going to be that I was taking care of home where they weren't.
Yeah.
Right. So you have this level of almost growing up a little bit too fast, things happening very fast. You have to be responsible for a lot around you. There are high expectations of what is going to happen when other people are not around and how you will fill those shoes.
Yeah.
So I needed a way. I needed a way so bad to get out of that expectation for myself. And like you mentioned, it turns into high functioning issues. It turns into high functioning anxiety. It turns into high functioning depression, where you're trying to, swim through it all and navigate through it all. And you're trying to keep your head above water. But, you're on a very, very narrow foundation. And it's very easy for you to break, especially when you're isolated or you're alone. So
Yeah.
bringing my husband in kind of strengthened that for me.
Yeah. And I appreciate that we're focusing on romantic love right now because obviously, as we know, there's all types of love, all types of relationships. What would you say your path was or your journey to getting to the point where now you're able to understand each other and really get into that ebb and flow and ease of your love and of your relationship?
Well, I will say that this is a long-term journey. And despite being with each other for as long as we have, for being with each other for 10 years, it's always going to be a journey of almost relearning each other because we met very young. We met while we were still in high school.
Mm.
So, the high school me and him learned each other in ways that was good for when we were in high school. And then when we, left off and I started college, it was a different experience because now I needed him for support and emotional support while I was going through trying to achieve a degree. And then when we had kids, it was, well, how do we balance our roles, our responsibilities, coming together financially in order to create a family? Who's going to be, good cop, bad cop, that kind of stuff. So our dynamic has been a unique blend over the course of the journey. I think the important thing to know is that it's not strict in saying that your relationship is going to be one way all the time.
Yeah.
The important part is that you have flexibility in the journey while you are both growing, especially when you're starting young. When you're more mature and you guys are meeting at a later stage, you have more opportunity to find a match that is in alignment with your journey at the time. For us, we had to be willing to say that there are going to be times where we're not in alignment, where our journeys are going to be unique, where we're still finding each other, where we're still defining what success is and what it means for us. And how do we bridge the gap and find each other in that challenge? And I think just being able to go through that with each other and to have the patience with each other to go through that process is really what makes the journey worth it and the relationship worth it.
Yeah, I hear you with the flexibility and the patience. I don't know if many of us have that from the start. I think
Mhm.
it's something that we learn over time to be more patient with people and to be more flexible. But as
Mhm.
you said, like that level of flexibility and patience is what will support you in moving through whatever it is that you need to move through. What do you think? What do you think helped you to be so flexible? Because I mean, as you mentioned, you've gone through like times where, okay, we're in high school, so we need something different now than we would need when we're in high school, than when we're married and we have kids, sort of thing. And even going into the next chapter, what do you think like helped you to have that level of flexibility?
I think what really helped me was I knew that at our core, there were parts of us that were always in love, right? So, even through the times where, someone did something silly and the other person's like, at the end of the day, it's like, but it's you. So, but also we made a commitment and we made a promise to each other and we made a decision that we were going to do this together. And doing that, we also promised our children that we were going to be committed to this unit. And of course, there are times and situations where that promise should not be kept. If your life is in danger, if this is making you sick, if this is putting you in physical or emotional pain, then yes, then there's a time where you need to move on. You need to make a choice for yourself. But for me, it was to say, we both live in this promise. And to learn each other is to also learn things like emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's to make a commitment to learning. Like I can, be open and say I have an anxious attachment style, is to learn about what developed in you, what grew with you, where your childhood put you. And, that's very new for me too, even, being able to understand some of those things. And to say, how do we navigate this together? Because no one is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
No one, despite what opportunities they could have grown up with, is emotionally perfect, right? We all come to the table with something.
Yeah.
And how do we choose to navigate life with that and with each other? Because if you leave a relationship with the anticipation that you're going to go out there and you're going to find someone who is perfect, ooh, the grass is not always greener. Ooh.
Yeah.
No.
There are no perfect people out there, and we not perfect either, like you said. It is always important to me when I am dating someone or in a relationship that we talk to one another in love. Even if you like feel frustrated or angry, like how is it that you can frame the thing that you got to say in a way that is through a lens of love? Because I think that in speaking to one another that way, the message is better received. So even if you're saying something that they don't agree with, or even if you're holding someone accountable, they still know you love them, even though this certain thing happened. And I think that's really important.
Yes, and there's a way to do it. And if you don't have the tools now and you don't have the thoughts behind it now, the fact that you're going out of your way to learn and that you're going out of your way to make it work for your person, you're saying, I want to do this with you. We need to do this together. We need to learn about this together. That's what therapy is for. That's what all these books on love and relationships are for.
Yeah, totally. And I'll also add, as we talked about, like when you were a child, there are certain things that happen to you that when things happen to you in the present, you aren't really mad about the thing that's happening to you in the present. Like you're really triggered by something that happened to you before that has been unresolved, that is unhealed, that you're probably still thinking in your child brain about, that as an adult, it's not the same. Like it is totally different. So that's so true.
Yes. And there have definitely been times like that in our relationship where we may get frustrated in the moment. And there's kind of this empty pause, this space for a second. And then one of us will say something like, when I was a kid, this and this and this used to happen with my parents. And it was so frustrating for me to experience that and to not feel heard, to not feel listened to not feel validated in the things that I'm trying to do. And when I tell you, just being able to be open and honest in the communication and in that moment washes away good 80% 90% of the frustration that you have, because you can now understand where your person is coming from.
Yeah.
And it's not to rationalize any behavior or action, but it is to say, okay, well, at least if we know where it's stemming from, we know what moves we have to make next. And whether that's you checking you, me checking me, whatever it is, we know at this point that there's something that we have acknowledged that we can navigate from, because we don't want to end up in pain that is cyclical and
Yeah.
is recurring, constant. We're going back to the same thing over and over.
Girl, those are the type of relationships you might need to depart, because I mean, I'm pretty sure that, there are things that I have done in the past and that other people have done in the past too, that relationships could have worked out, but I've definitely been in one of those relationships where I felt like we're revisiting the same topic over and over and over again. And if that's what we got to do, we probably just are not in alignment with one another, and we probably won't ever be in alignment with one another. Like,
Mm.
great person, but that doesn't mean you the person for me. Or we're the
So that's the hard part, see, is because if you guys are revisiting the same thing over and over, it's because something is not being acknowledged.
Yeah.
The communication is not there. So for me, and I've been in those moments, because when you're stuck, when you're in the same thing for 10 years, you're going to have a couple of those moments. But, for me, it's this day that the communication, my goal was to get the communication there.
Yeah.
And my goal is to say, we're going to meet somewhere where there is deeper understanding of who we are and what this is and how we work in this relationship together. Because there's never going to be a point where things are, as we mentioned, perfect. And sometimes for his 40, I give my 60. Sometimes for my 30, he gives his 70.
Yeah.
So we have to meet where that line moves. And it can fluctuate. It fluctuates your entire relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I am so happy that y'all have that level of commitment. I ain't going back.
You don't go back. Don't go back.
Backwards. But yes, going forward, absolutely. Like, I think that it's important to really be dialed in and be able to communicate with one another in a way where you're hearing what the other person is saying, what it is that they need, and then you can get to some sort of point of alignment. Speaking of alignment, we talked earlier about like when initially starting off and like getting into the world, you're not really thinking about love at all. Like, you're really just thinking about your success. But when you bring two people together, and again, everyone, if you're just joining, we're talking about romantic love. If you bring two people together in alignment, how does the power of that alignment help you to achieve the success that you're looking for? Whether that's like success in your career, success, how you might define it at home, success in your business, etc.
It's a good question. I think the most important thing really is that when you have two people who are committed to one goal, that your output is going to be stronger. And there were times for me where the person that I was in love with was really the only person that I had. So when you talk about having someone who you can rely on, someone who you can confide in, someone who's going to back you up, especially, after you talk about later in the journey, having kids, having a family, there are times where you need a break. There are times where you need to turn off. There are times where you need a little bit of your own peace. There are times that I spent trying to reintroduce myself to me, because I had changed as a woman. I was no longer the person he met in high school. I was a different Claudia who had been focused on career, who had matured into corporate baddie, who had wanted to start businesses, who had been in boardrooms shoulder to shoulder with CEOs, talking it up, who had given birth, no epidural. Right? So it was, for me, it was to say I I needed that person to rely on. And it is not always someone that you're in love with. It could be someone that you have love for.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you are talking about your circle, your inner circle, your community, those that you hold dear, especially when you talk about business, who do they always say your first customer is going to be? Someone who you know, someone who's in your contacts, someone who you talk to on a regular, who has faith in you and will commit a few dollars for you to grow the thing that you have in your heart and your head. So for me, I found that person, and I found it in him. And it is important that you are not on your journey as an entrepreneur, as a woman, in complete isolation. Because to me, living a soft life is saying that you have the time, opportunity, and space to be delicate, to be fragile, to be vulnerable. And when you are completely alone, you're in survival mode.
Mm.
You're just trying to make all this work. And if all you got is you, that's real hard to be soft.
That is a word right there. When you're all alone, it is really hard to be soft.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. I was sharing probably a week ago how I have literally worked from home since 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I've been in isolation in terms of in real life connection. So in 2020, we were all at home. 2021, I got divorced. I've dated, but really just seeing people on the weekend. I work from home. I work from home and go into the office maybe once a quarter. So I've spent so much time alone. And while the quiet is great, what I've realized is that I have literally just been isolated, not on purpose. Um, but yeah, definitely isolated in many ways. It's like, yeah, I'll have a couple conversations here and there. I'll text here and there. But if I think about pre-2020 Crystle and post-2020 Crystle, I am a lot quieter and I'm definitely a lot more isolated. And things do feel harder. It feels harder to ask for help. It feels harder to be vulnerable because it's like you just in this space by yourself, figuring it out. So that was felt.
You know, you know how people like to say, I'm in this era.
Mhm.
And I would like to think that Crystle in this era needs community, but maybe where she finds it is a little bit unique compared to where she found it in 2019, 2020. I think that comes with, and I felt that too. When I transitioned and I really had my career and I had my grip like this on my career, I felt very isolated, even as a professional, because there weren't a lot of people around me who I grew up with, who were in my corner, who were in my family, who were doing anything close to what I was doing. I
Mhm.
was first generation inside of corporate. What I built brick by brick, right, with my husband. um, and, I had to go out and I really had to seek the people that I was looking for in that space. And it was specific.
Yeah.
Same way that I found you scrolling on LinkedIn going, ooh, she has a podcast, Living Soft Life. I like this.
Mhm.
It's a little different how you find people who are in alignment with you and who are for you in this era.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I need to go out and actually touch those people. Not
Mhm.
inappropriately, but I need to be in the same room with those people
Mhm.
rather than here online. So it is my hope to in the near future take this on the road and meet more people. I've done a couple of episodes live, one here in Austin, one in Atlanta. I actually have one coming up in October. with someone who I previously had on the podcast. It's at her retreat, and it's going to be it's in California. I don't know how to pronounce the place. I think it's called Rancho Mirage, I think is what it's called. I will share the details in the chat for everyone. But I'm excited about that and just other different opportunities to just meet people in person and just have that connection.
Camaraderie is real, and face-to-face connections, things happen a lot faster.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Chanel, we going on a live podcast road show. Maybe we'll pop into your city, girl. Maybe we'll pop into your city. So what would you say to the person who might be listening, who may say, I want to prioritize love right now? And then consequently, what would you say to the person who's like, not important, I don't need it?
Well, to the person who is interested in love, regardless of what that type of love may be, whether it's friendships, if it's rekindling with family, if it's finding someone that you want to build a relationship with, I recommend, as Crystle is saying, that you're going to go in person and you're going to go to the places that you love and you're going to participate in the activities that you enjoy so that you can make close and deep connections with the people who are in alignment with you in this era. My New York accent just hollered out.
It really did.
It really did. For the person who is not interested in love, I would say, kudos to you that you want to live in your peace. It's respectable and it is an honorable journey, but it is painful. Living in isolation, as we've all seen and experienced through 2020, coming out into, this time post-pandemic, that living in isolation can be painful. What it does to you emotionally, psychologically can be painful. And when you are in a period of seeking growth and you are trying to build something, the best thing that you can have around you is differing opinions, is people who can share their feedback with you and their thoughts with you, are people that you could spin a couple of ideas off of if necessary. So, enjoy your moment of peace and your moment of isolation and finding yourself and loving yourself in that journey. But be ready to come back into wanting to feel fulfilled with community and love, because that's who you want with you at the end of the day when it all washes away.
Yeah, well, let's make that real, because you are building something. Oh, the kitty
As my kitty likes to point out, he said, I'm building something. It's right here.
On time, right? You're building something. Tell us about the thing that you're building, but also how love has really played a role in you and your success with what you're building.
Yeah. So if not for the people that I've had around me, the love that I've had around me, my husband as an inspiration, my father as an inspiration, actually, I don't think I would have gotten nearly as far as I have over the course of this last year. But I am founding a community. It's called the Less Than 1% Club, and it is specifically for marketers, entrepreneurs, founders, C-suite executives to all come together as people of color in one space. My goal is to create a place where we have a new cycle of success, meaning from the time you are graduating high school, graduating college, and you're trying to find your way into this corporate, big, crazy corporate world, you have people who are open to giving you jobs, who are BIPOC owned, Black owned, woman owned organizations, and you are able to be inspired by the businesses that have been created in front of you, the job opportunities that you have, the career opportunities that you have within the community, and that it allows you to grow into one day a successful business owner so that you can beget that same cycle of success.
I love that so much. I want to join the community. So tell people how they can find it online.
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Find me right here on LinkedIn. Go to the Less Than 1% Club on LinkedIn. Find me, Claudia Chanel Lopez, on LinkedIn. You'll see links going back to the community. That's where we are now. You could also find us at thelessthanoneclub.com if you would like to check us out on the web. And I look forward to seeing you all there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I have really enjoyed this conversation with you because I think that a lot of us really don't realize how love plays a role in our success and how we navigate our future and even healing. So I think it was good to hear from you today when you talked about, and I know we talked specifically about romantic love, but as we all know, there's all types of love that you can have between you and your family, your children, your friends, etc. Like there's all types of love, and all types of love help to move you forward because you do need people in your corner who are going to tell you the things that you might not want to hear.
Yes.
People in your corner who are going to say, rest, take a break, um, who are going to help you expand on the ideas that you have, who are going to hold you when you want to give up and convince you not to give up. We all need those people in our lives, and that is love.
Exactly.
100%. So, again, thank you so much for joining the episode. Thank you, everyone who is engaging in the chat and who might be team replay. I will also drop in the chat a link to our mailing list. As you all know, we're on the LinkedIn platform. So sometimes you're seeing things that come from We Ain't Dying for This, and sometimes you all aren't seeing it. If you want to stay connected and receive updates first, definitely join the mailing list. We'll add you and be sure that, again, you receive any updates that we have coming up first. We actually have something very exciting to share that we will be sharing soon with folks who join the mailing list. So as I mentioned, I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat right after we jump from the call. So we'll see you all next week, next Thursday, for another episode of We Ain't Dying for This. But until then, y'all have a good night and join the mailing list.
Thanks, everyone.